From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
And welcome to Space Brains, the show where we watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 67, and we're talking about Chinese sci-fi film Bleeding Steel. Came out in 2017. So in this episode, we will reveal what we thought about that film, the ins and outs of narrative, plus a bit of film language, and then a nice deep dive into a specific piece of science that the filmmakers are proposing. Bleeding Steel was directed by Leo Zhang, and I'm probably going to have issues with some of these names tonight, but the writer Erica Chao,
well, I'm not going to correct you.
Siwa and Leo all were screenwriters for this film.
Yeah, so turn back now if you haven't seen this film. Go and watch it because this is your spoiler warning. Warning. And then come back and listen to us because we're going to go right through this thing.
Just going into all of it.
Cheap artificial blood, something like that.
Well, your blood is made of steel, isn't it? Your heart is made of steel.
Steel heart.
Steel heart. We'll copyright that name. Is there a film made out there called Steel Heart? That's our next episode.
Bleeding Steel is a pretty good name for a book.
It is. So Bleeding Steel is about a cop, Jackiechan, who must protect a scientist's genetic material from an arms dealer. But when he learns the code is inside his deceased but now regenerative daughter, it becomes very personal, sorry.
It becomes personal.
No. And that's what we expect from a Jackie Chan movie, don't we? We expect it to be personal.
Well, I think just about any of these sort of films has to be personal.
Well, it does. That's the golden rule of writing, right?
The interesting thing is how do you come up with a fresh take on it? And I did like this one. He's got to rescue this guy who's been kidnapped and held against his will by the arms dealer.
Yep.
While simultaneously his daughter is dying in the hospital. And then it's later on we discover that his daughter survived.
Yeah.
Well, was saved. Brought back to life, resurrected.
By the doctor.
Whatever. But the point is, it's personal thing where he hasn't revealed himself to his daughter in order to keep her safe. But then now it's, the movie progresses. So I think it was a good way of doing that. Personal.
It's a good fork in the road straight away, isn't it, for a character? Like, what shows you who this character is.
Oh, it's good, yeah.
And is that your number one takeaway already? We're already done? Or have you got a number one takeaway from Bleeding Steel?
My number one takeaway is that if you are a cybernetic super soldier with regenerating blood, you also somehow get a flying fortress.
Yeah.
Why not? It was not explained where that came from.
No explanations.
Why he was the only one with this like not Death Star, like a Star Destroyer, Star flying. Very cool, and I very much liked it. And it makes for a good ending. It could easily have been something far more mundane, but I think there's fun in that.
I think they took that science element and then just ran with it in a whole other angle for that Death Destroyer plane thing, whatever it was.
They could have just used like a big flying cargo plane.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is it's hard to know where this Andre soldier fellow is.
Yeah.
And so, that's because he keeps flying around the place all the time.
That's right.
They could have just done it. Oh, it's just a standard cargo plane that he just flies around that he knows from his military buddies.
But no, this
was far
was
more interesting to make it a flying fortress filled with bad guys.
And scientists and the whole array, right? Like it was.
Oh, cool. the whole empire was there.
It was. I suppose in the Marvel universe, they've got that too, don't they? They have that kind of ship thing that they kind of hover around on.
I can't remember what they call it now, but yes, it's that flying aircraft carrier.
Yeah, which is sort of a bit of a bending of the truth.
Shouldn't a flying aircraft carrier have ships on board that?
Yeah.
Like drops ships off because it's so big itself.
It's a
reversal.
Yeah.
The reversal, that's a ship with aeroplanes. It's an aeroplane with ships. It's just, but no, I don't know where I'm going. That doesn't really work out very well.
No, it doesn't at all.
But tell me though, was this hope, warning, or experiment?
Warning. So I reckon it's a cautionary tale. Basically, science, because in this story, the doctor, he does save his daughter with his, a scientific breakthrough, but he's also, of course, kind of been creating that science for, the military and selling that on to the arms dealer with the bad guy, right? Like he's made the bad guy the bad guy. It's one of those examples of the scientist making Frankenstein or, actually making the bad guy.
You mean the sequel to Frankenstein where the monster's name is Frankenstein?
Yeah, well, Frankenstein...
That movie's been made so that we're allowed to refer to the monster as Frankenstein. So if anyone tries to correct you, say, no, I'm talking about the sequel.
Talking about the sequel here. No, well, I've read the book, and the thing is, Frankenstein's actually not a bad guy.
He wants to help people.
He wants to help people. He just doesn't know how to help people. Where do I put the cereal? But the thing is, in this, it is that same thing, like science going too far. And of course, we have this, there is this really cheap excuse, isn't it, in a lot of sci-fi films that, hey, it's for the military or it's for the arms dealers. And then, I think the scientists never start off in a bad foot, do they? But it's just that who's paying for this? It's a bit like the arts. No one's going to fund you. But it's same for the scientists. No one funds you until there's like a real need for it.
Just wait until you discover who's funding us.
Yeah, I know. You'll really... Suddenly, episode 72, we really changed tax, and this podcast becomes about something totally different.
Yeah, that's when we broadcast the mind control ray.
That's right. So just...
make you all come to the film festival. Which
is confusing because being a podcast, who knows when they actually listen to it in their own time frame. But anyway, it'll be there subliminally. But I think definitely a cautionary tale, the fact that the wrong people want these technologies. And even, the bad guy then is hunting them to get to her because that's going to regenerate him now because he got burnt early in the film and was deformed and stuck in his huge air carrier in the sky. And then even right at the end, you've got another guy surrounded by boobies kind of wanting to buy that technology again, isn't it? So it's it's always going to be something bad.
And I like this kind of cautionary tale because it's something I've often thought about is when you have a singular power being revealed, like it's in this case, it's regenerating blood, for example.
Yeah.
Then when it's so singular like this, like it's not widespread and it's so far advanced, it's invariably going to cause massive conflict.
Yeah.
And I've thought about these things. You take the hypothetical, your magic genie pops out and gives you the power to heal anything with a touch.
Yep.
Any wound, you get anything, any disease, anything at all, you can just heal with a touch. So then you sort of go, oh, great, now I can, well, what can I really do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you go into a hospital and you just go through and touch and heal everyone, and then it gets out, okay, you have this ability to do this.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are going to want you to only do it for them?
Billions.
But then the other question is, there are millions of people who are sick and dying and ill. How do you divide your time? You can't.
I know.
Even if you spent all day, every day, just running around touching as many people as you could, healing them, you would not physically have enough time.
No, well, you get those those religious places in the world where people queue all day and they get that 3 seconds to touch the statue or the weeping rock or whatever it is.
And so then there's going to be it's a scarce, really useful resource. And how do you mean that? You basically have to keep it quiet, basically.
Yeah.
And people say, well, that's so selfish of you. But if I let this out, the trouble it's going to cause, bad people will want to kidnap me, some organized crime leader has found that their favorite second cousin has cancer. And so, well, now you're getting picked up and chucked in the back of a truck and dragged off to, but Rockingham.
Yeah. but even then, like another bad guy wants you because they know that you're valuable, right?
No, they'll ransom you.
The more precious a diamond, the more precious the whatever it is. Oh, shiny. It's like, hey, you're now valuable. Everyone wants you, don't they? So yeah, it's a good example of probably making the conflict very high. And in this context, which other films have done this, in this context, it's a young girl, so she's the valuable product. so to speak, and she's the one with the science in her body, and that way, she's the value point, isn't it, for everyone?
Yeah.
But that's why I think, again,
she's
it's
the
cautionary.
walking MacGuffin.
Whereas if you do a Wikipedia and just make it open source, everyone can access it. No one wants to pay for it. It's fine. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
So you just distribute your technology out.
And that's the thing. If you could just jump in the ocean and make all the waters healing waters.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
not a
go
problem.
for it. Yeah.
That would have its own problems then with no disease. But anyway,
So this is the first time I've ever seen this film. Is this the first time for yourself?
first time I saw it advertised, I saw it on Netflix advertised, and I do briefly remember hearing or seeing mention of this in the news because he was filming, Jackie Chan's filming in Sydney.
Oh, okay.
So I do remember there was something about
Yep.
his film arriving in Sydney to do production, but I never really sort of followed up with it. 2017, 4 years ago now, I was far too in the depths of dealing with 6-year-old, 5-year-old kids and so on.
I mean, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know it was filmed in Sydney. I was surprised when in the story suddenly we're in Sydney. I'm like, oh, okay, we're in Sydney. So, and there's a couple of really iconic Sydney settings, of course, that pop up. And actually a favourite scene of mine, which we'll come to later with the Opera House. What was your first impression?
My first impression was it felt very Jackie Chan.
Yep.
It had a very good that sense of his style. Like there was
There's a bit of humour.
A bit of humour in there, and a little bit
in the intensity.
Yeah, and the sort of unusual combat choreography, and it was a good sort of fun movie to watch that wasn't, as his films do, didn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, which I quite like at
again,
times.
It just asks you, says, look, just go with us.
Yeah.
Okay, there's this dude here. He looks like a, Marilyn Manson lookalike.
Matrix
with
crossover, 90s crossover.
With anonymous soldier guards.
Yeah.
Just deal with it.
Just do it, yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You just reminded me of the spaceship in the sky. Like, there's no explanation that the guards, they had those, like, really powerful guns as well, didn't they? And the suits they wore, it was kind of like bullets didn't penetrate them at all, and so you just had to go with the flow of it. So Surrey's making a really good point there. Sit down to watch this movie, grab yourself some popcorn or whatever you like to eat, and just sort of go for the ride.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan always does do some stunts that are unbelievable, and even the fighting scenes themselves are quite... They're OTT, but in a good way, I find. Like, I still remember seeing Rumble in the Bronx was the first film I'd ever seen of Jackie Chan, which I know is the first venture over to Hollywood. And it's just like those outrageous stunts that he does in the fight scenes are kind of... It's a spectacle. It's like going to the circus or something, isn't it? It's something OTT, and it's great. It's good fun.
Okay, so, well... That's what you found was really good, but what was your favourite scene?
Oh, well, the Opera House. Okay, so the Opera House to me...
my favourite scene.
Yeah. Well, for one reason, okay, so it's a classic Jackie Chan, and I thought this, I'm like, oh my God, is he going to have a fight? Once they were in Sydney, I'm like, is he going to have a fight on top of the Harbour Bridge, right? Because you can go up on the Harbour Bridge. It's a tourism thing. And I think you can also go up on the Opera House. I don't know, but these days they're doing a lot of those like bridge climbs and building climbs, and it's a good tourist activity if you enjoy heights.
Yeah, I've done it.
Now, the reason why this is really good, this scene for me ticks a lot of boxes is it is really reminded me a lot of a Hitchcock film, and the filmmakers have gone to that effort to me. They've played off the Hitchcock idea of like showing you heights in a really interesting way. The second thing is, hey, why don't we have a fight on top of the Opera House? Awesome. Love it, right? Like, why not take it to that extremity? And then the third thing is, I don't really have a problem with heights. It's not something for me. My wife, even when we've watched movies, she didn't watch this with me, this one, but even when we watch some movies and they're on top of a building or something, she might go, like a physical reaction. And normally I'm like, it doesn't really do it to me. I remember going to, the 3D Omni kind of, one of those, what they call Omnimax screens, and it goes, down on a roller coaster, and you feel that a bit. So I'm not that desensitized, but normally in film, it's not a big thing. However, the way they shot this really got me kind of like my heart jumping a little bit. It got me feeling like I was above the opera house, and I was on the side of the opera house. So it was a massive kudos to Leo Zhang. I felt that he really took me to that moment. And again, it's a popcorn moment. Like, it's not like it's this, dramatic moment. It's a really high octane, heart pumping scene. And it ticked the box for me, because normally that doesn't get me. That normally doesn't get me. And whereas that scene got me. And it's a great fight as well between him and the I think she's just called the Woman in Black.
Yeah, she's never named.
She's not named. Australian actress Tess Corbett.
I called her Trinity on steroids.
She's like that.
My notes.
She's totally like that, right? And she's played by an Australian actress, Tess Corbett, who's been in a whole bunch of stuff. She was in Alien, the Alien Covenant, the one that was shot in Sydney. So she's in that. And she's in a big Hemsworth movie coming out in 2021. But she's got a pretty big career here in Australia, Home and Away and all that sort of stuff. That's our benchmark, as always. But she's a real working actor in the film and TV world. So, but I loved that scene. That scene really hooked me. And no, it's not at all sci-fi, but it got me. So it was my favourite scene.
It was a beautiful scene. I loved it too, because of all those things you said, and the fact that it's just nice that they're in that little narrow bit.
That little narrow bit, yeah.
As we see the harbour bridge behind them a little bit, the slipping and sliding on the tiles.
They just did a lot of jump cuts above. They must have got a couple of drones up there, I'd say. Drones make a lot of this filming very different. You can go right above people to the side. You can get in, and even possibly to reduce the time stunt men are even up there or whatever, or women, you can pop up a couple of drones. Pretty inexpensive, on a big film like this.
You don't need the same clearance as you do with a helicopter.
No, that's right. And you can kind of alleviate and change angles really quickly. So drones are changing a lot of those kind of shots, as people have noticed. So is this film a science fiction film, Surrey?
It sure is.
Why? Why is it? What makes it a science fiction film?
The reason is because...
Apart from that Death Star in the sky.
Well, we have the basic story, if we're going to break it right down, is the fact that this officer's daughter has something that someone else wants.
Yeah.
Now, you could have said...
That could be not sci-fi.
It could have been a diamond.
Yep.
Or a piece of paper. Or
a special watch or something.
Or a special watch. But the problem is this was integrated into it. Like, it was
it's in her blood.
It was inseparable.
That's a good point, yeah.
And as a result, she was the key, as well as the plot point. She was, like I said, a walking MacGuffin. She was needed by the bad guys, and the good guys wanted to keep her. Yeah. And there was no way that you could separate her specialness from her, which means that scientific explanation of it being in her blood with the memories in the blood, that in itself basically means that, if you took the science fiction out of this film, you wouldn't be able to tell the same story, because you'd have to come up with additional reasons as to why they didn't just, take the watch off her or photograph the special tattoo she has or whatever other sort of thing they could have done.
Yeah, like why would the bad guys want her? You can understand her father's quest to sort of be in the background. Like, let's say she just had amnesia, so she had forgotten about him, which is also happens in this story. Yeah. But let's just say that was the point, and then he's just overwatching her from a distance. Why would anyone want her in that way, in that bad way? What's her resource?
In a lethal way too.
Yeah.
Because it's not as if she owes some money.
Yep.
Well, so they're going to kidnap her and hold her for ransom.
Yeah, that's right.
Or make her work off her debt in a sweatshop or something. Like Fighting Pit, I expect, would be the better way of doing it.
If it's a Jackie Chan movie, yeah. But no, you're right. Like in this one, it's like I'm going to suck the blood out of you. I'm going to take every last drop, because I'm going to reinvent myself so I'm healthy again, and then I'm going to make a super squadron army behind me.
And haven't we all wanted at some stage to exchange our blood with a beautiful Chinese girl's blood?
Yes, of course.
I've gone through a few small Chinese girls myself.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, their bloodless corpses are strewn.
Oh, that's why your skin looks so good these days.
It's got that glow.
It's got that real glow to it.
A uni student glow. Yeah. Okay. So with that, then what was the science part, the sci-fi bit that you really liked?
I liked that when we got into Dr. James, played by Kim Jin-jul, the Australian actor. Great to see him back in a role, isn't it?
Colin Gardner.
Colin Gardner. Yeah. I mean, he has been in a whole bunch of dramatic stuff as well. But yeah, huge actor here. You know, been around the traps a long time. Big 90s actor, I think, probably more so. But so it's great to see him back behind there as this sword. I mean, it was funny, wasn't it? Because he wasn't a evil scientist, so to speak, and yet, yeah, and he doesn't play a massive role. So it was a bit of a weird role in a way. I found that character a little bit odd, and then he obviously saves the daughter, but as a last ditch effort to kind of put his work out to the world as well.
Yeah, he's trying to save his...
A little bit of vanity, and it's not like he's just trying to save
I was just going to say, for listeners who aren't Australian or maybe not old enough Australian, Kim Ginjul, he sort of came up through the ranks with Eric Bana.
Yeah.
So we know Eric Bana from here in Australia from Chopper, but also the first Hulk movie, if you remember that, and from Black Hawk Down, and a couple of those other films, The Time Traveler's Wife, and so on.
A couple of films we need to do, probably.
So Kim Ginjul and Eric Bana, they were in the same pool of actors doing some comedy skit shows and a number of other sort of smaller Australian productions at the time. Eric obviously went over to Hollywood, and Kim, he stayed true blue Aussie.
Yes, he
did. Thank you. Or he probably went to New Zealand. He probably went to New Zealand. Yeah,
probably.
We won't go to New Zealand.
But anyway, sorry, I deviate from the whole point of the question, which is the science element, is this idea that they did dive into showing us the animals that regenerate. So he like cuts up a starfish and he pulls the tails off some lizards, and they sort of digitally put them back. And I just liked that they based his science and they were making it a very visceral or visual way of showing what he meant, like how his science worked. Because I think sometimes it's a real layman's way of describing this science. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to inject you this blood and your skin will regenerate. And you think, where does that come? Oh, starfish. Yeah. Starfish. They regenerate. They regrow. And then here's a lizard. Remember how a lizard, you can't cut a lizard in half and it regrows, but you cut its tail.
That would be so cool.
I know, it would be awesome if any animal actually did that, you know, like to that intensity. And there is some other animals, I think some jellyfish and octopus do it as well, don't they?
They grow arms.
They grow arms again. And I only saw that recently because of that great Netflix doco, but it's like, it's little. The arm is little. It takes a while to come back. Oh, yeah. You know, like in the movies and stuff, they've always like made, the arm just comes back. But it, which Jackie Chan does.
Yes.
At the end of this film, it just, here's an arm, right? But like in reality, no, it's like a little stump for a while and starts coming back, which makes so much more sense. But I liked that science was explained that way. So that was my own personal taste.
It was a lovely, quick introduction. A quick, here you go, look.
Done. Yeah, done. I've explained the science. So what's talking about your own sci-fi or creative elements? Are you up to anything particular that you want to share, show and tell, share and tell?
Yeah, well, I've
podcasting.
I've been working hardcore on this whole film festival thing, but I discovered Neil Blomkamp's Oats Studio on Netflix.
Okay.
So it's an anthology series of science fiction stuff.
Awesome.
I saw a little bit of this a couple of years ago. One of them, and I remember seeing it going, oh, what's this all about? This Oats Studio, and like it kind of disappears, like it was going to be like a web release thing. And I didn't really know what it was, but now it's turned up on Netflix, so I'm definitely going to be hammering my way through that.
Awesome,
which is pretty good.
Yeah.
My writing group, I'm still writing this screenplay, trying to come to grips with how you do that, which is surprisingly difficult. It's like when I was doing an audio play, trying to turn from my story into a script that is only audio and representing that. And now I'm sort of trying to do this a video screenplay, like obviously a screenplay as opposed to an audio play,
or a telly play, I suppose, because it's for television,
and trying to get the right level of here's what's happening, but I don't paint every picture because that's what the director and the art director and the creative that visual creation is going to come after the screenplay. Yeah, as I'm saying, you do the screenplay and you come up with what are those boards, picture panels,
storyboard.
You storyboard out like you see the one for Alien, which is like it's like a whole graphic novel type arrangement. and then it goes into, filming and so on. So you don't want to be, you want to get the flavor and the intention so people know what you're doing and talking about, but you don't want to overdo it because there are different ways that you could express a person's emotion, for example. The actor, that's their job.
Yeah.
You want them to have enough in the script to know that they're supposed to be angry at this point, but how they do that is up to the performance.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the advice for script writing that I've read and seen over the years, like the scripts are supposed to be lean and mean, meaning there's not supposed to be many words on a page. A novel is very different. It's full of words, whereas a script has a lot of blank space, and that's what they mean by lean and mean. And also a little tip there, you can have a shooting script, and that starts to have the camera shots and the editing literally labeled out, whereas you're writing the script from the writer point of view. So you're telling the story and sharing the emotions, that all has to be there. And if there's also something essential to the script for you as the writer, for example, the blood needs to be in this girl, well, that needs to be in the script, right? But it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to necessarily maybe describe the motorbike she rides on, unless that motorbike was a real key element to the character.
Don't imagine with this starfish and lizard tail, I wouldn't say there's a quick shot of a lizard and a starfish regenerating. You might say that Dr. James cuts the tail off a lizard and that tail regrows, or it's something along that. But you're not saying, you're not dictating. But in the way that you can write that, you can sneakily stick in a kind of rough camera angle, because if you're a little tiny skint lizard about the size of 10 centimeters has its tail precisely cut off by Dr. James, right? The director is going to go, well, that has to be a close-up. And in your mind, you're like, it should be a close-up. Yes.
So you're kind of tricked in a way because you are directing that, but you shouldn't write in there close-up of lizard cut tail, that's not going to probably get you anywhere.
Because it could also be represented as a wireframe animation in a computer simulation.
And that's what then the director might go, do you know what? I don't want a real lizard. Let's do it on a computer screen. The doctor kind of showing his work to someone else or something. Yeah.
Anyway, so
that's right.
So that's interesting. The other interesting part about that, because we talk a bit about how our acts are broken down and different elements, and I'm at that point where I'm sort of just writing the whole script.
Yep.
And then there's multiple characters in this, but I'm writing it basically sort of from the one.
Yeah.
And then I figure what I'll have to do then is go back and drew up a bit of a beat sheet, as it were. Here's some plot points that need to happen at certain times.
Yeah.
But I also need to then introduce these other elements of the story in order to make the whole thing work. Yeah. And trying to do that, and this is where a lot of writers will give you the advice of, you just vomit your first draft.
Yep.
Start writing after you've written the first draft. That's when you start making the story.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm taking it from this short story I wrote, or novella.
Yep.
And turning that into a screenplay format.
Yep.
But it's not, it's supposed to be an 8 episode, I'm putting it in the format of a Netflix or a streaming services, they want 8 episodes of about 40 to 50 minutes long each. So that's what I'm doing. So I want to pay about 45 to 60 page sort of script, but it's got to have the highs and lows, and the pilot has to be enough to act as the inciting incident for the whole show, so you know what the other 7 episodes are going to be doing, roughly speaking. So that is going to come next. I'm just doing that initial, get it all out.
Splurge it out.
And then break it down, and then make sure the interactions of the characters demonstrate their character traits, for example, because you can't suddenly have someone be hot, headed, tempered in the 3rd episode, just suddenly out of nowhere. Up until then, they just seem to be quite normal. But then suddenly they have this big temper tantrum.
Suddenly they've got an anger problem.
Where'd that come from? So I've got to make sure that there's some little hint. Okay, they've got this problem. They've got this problem. They've got this strength in little bits there, so that later on they'll come into play. So
exciting.
It's an interesting process, and I'm enjoying it. So
I'll just finish on that with, it's funny, isn't it? Because you do take someone like Blake Schneider, who's sort of really big on don't write anything until you beat it all out. But then there's other writers that are like, other real writers that have written stuff themselves and, published authors. I'm trying to think. There's one of those really big ones, whether it's Dean Koontz or Michael Connolly. I'm trying to think. There's one, and you might know actually, Surrey, or if you're out there and you're listening and you're going, it's this guy. He is notorious for actually writing the main character's whole life, which is a big no-no.
Isn't that Archer?
That's Archer, is it? Yeah, it's one of them. Right?
I think, he writes.
He writes, like, literally, like, they were born, and he writes the whole thing, right? And the story I was told by someone else who's about writing was like, he writes the whole person's life, the whole thing, and it's thousands, right? Thousands of pages or something, right? Or thousands of words, right? Beyond what the book's going to be. And then he goes, when he finishes that process, then he goes, when they're 32, that happens, that's the start of the book.
Yes.
And and then he takes that chunk and morphs that and massages that into a book. But I've heard so many other people go, no, don't do that process. You want to beat it out, or you want to do this. So, it'd be interesting if you're out there listening and you're a writer yourself. Well, get in touch with us. What is the best way to do it? Because I think both have merits. I am a big fan as well. Like when drafting stuff, spew everything out. But with my scripts, I've tried to stick with the idea of beating stuff out.
Well,
first.
in this case, the novella I did write from a formed story, a plot, I should say. Yeah. So I created the characters based on what I needed to have happen.
Yeah.
So I needed a certain climax to have happen, which meant that character A needed to be, aggressive and narcissistic. Character B had to be, a little bit withdrawn but creepy. And then so let's now put that at the start and make sure that I use that there. And then I need to have this incident where they're out of their normal world. And so I definitely put that down, and
you sort of built a recipe
and broke it into the rough sort of proportions it needed to be.
Yeah.
And then of course I fleshed it in from there.
Yeah.
But because I'm writing a screenplay, it falls to a different word count.
Yeah.
Like, whereas I would have maybe 3 paragraphs of inner thought and description, that comes out as being, a Hansa walks across the warehouse and punches the wall.
Yeah.
But of course, the whole heap of stuff in a written, novel, a whole heap of thought has happened, and they've noticed that, and there's remembering this, and they're doing that, and then they, at the end of it, punch the wall. Whereas in a screenplay, the actor's job there is to show a bit of conflict on their face and wrestle with something.
Why does he punch the wall?
And the director needs to sort of show the camera angles, a bit of a Dutch close up, from a high angle or something, and all that sort of thing. So as a result, it's me converting over into the screenplay, not knowing how those lengths work out. So I can then look at what's there and go, okay, this needs to be the inciting incident. This exciting part here that makes everyone know what's going on has to happen earlier, which means this other stuff either gets cut or is reworked to appear somewhere else in case it's, I actually is a literal saving the cat moment because this character is different from the one in the story, because in the story it's a bit of a horror and the main character's a dick and dies at the end. But in the screenplay they got to go 8 episodes, so can't be that way. But anyway, that's that.
It's exciting. It's really cool.
It's almost too exciting.
We'll see it on Netflix in 2022. Late 2022, 2023.
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, you just got to get the writing bit done first, anyway.
Yes,
for us to then visually get to see it.
Yes. Okay. And how about yourself? What have you been cracking on with?
I'll be very quick. Harold the Plumber, the film I've been sort of dilly-dallying on a little bit over these last couple of months, but cracking on. Got the voiceovers done yesterday, laid them out today. Got a really pretty damn good tight edit going on now. So I'm actually hopeful that in the next couple of weeks, I'm trying to kind of clear it out so then my schedule is a bit more open for other things. And it's also been time for it. So Yeah, I'm excited to get that out. Yeah, I think so. Within the next couple of weeks, there should be something to show the world.
And that's the sort of film that could be entered into a film festival.
Well, that will be the plan with Harold. But this film festival, of course, there'd probably be a conflict of interest because I know the people running it.
Oh, yes.
And that festival is...
the Spacebrains Science Fiction Film Festival.
Yeah, and it's happening in May 2022 here in Mandurah, where we are based.
Yes, being performed. They're being the awards screening and gala event programming is on the 21st at the Mandurah Performing Arts Centre in the Fish Trap Theatre. So it's got a stadium-style seating, a proper screen, big sound.
Over 140 people will be present, hopefully. No, I think they will. People love their short films, and we've been getting a whole bunch entered. A couple more came in this week. When you look at it, it might feel like a little dribble of entries, but now we've got quite a few entries. So if you're out there listening and you've been wanting, I actually had a friend. Through a friend who sort of makes scientific art films and, biology films kind of. It's a very niche thing that she does, but she actually said, I thought I missed it. I'm like, no, you still got time.
Still have time.
The end of October 2021 is our sort of...
End of November,
sorry, is our early bird, not our early bird, but our normal entry point. And then after that, there will still be a late entry and then an extended entry where the price does just go up a little bit, but and also just so we're a bit better organised for the actual festival. So, but still time to make your own sci-fi film, please do.
Get in there.
Get on Film Freeway to enter, or head to spacebrains.com.au, and that will, you can follow the links pretty easily. So let's get into
the film.
Talking
about the plot.
The plot of the film.
Techniques, some symbolism, how the whole plot comes together.
Definitely. So, let's try to pick on some narrative, some key parts, camera, etc. We talked a little bit about that Hitchcock high-up drone shots, even though Hitchcock didn't have a drone, but he was notorious for using that kind of above the ceiling shot, and it does add a bit more abstractness to it. So we did mention Leo Zhang. Now, he's a bit unknown before this film, but he's got a couple of big action films coming out, including another one of those Jackie Chan police stories, so not sci-fi. And this film was actually released as a bit of a police story title in Japan.
Reborn.
But I think they just did that to try to sell it. Well, because that's like a franchise film,
but Jackie Chan went in with that too.
Yeah.
He sang the closing credits. He's a singer too.
Yeah,
old Jackie Chan.
Oh, he is. And as I said, so Leo's a little bit unknown according to IMDb. I'm not too sure about that. Let us know, Leo, if you've got an extensive short film catalogue. Maybe you can send it us.
Well, maybe there's more feature films in China that we've just not come across because it doesn't go on IMDb.
That's right. So Leo did team up with Erica and Siwa, I think. Siwei. Cool.
Yeah. Siwei, you want to go and correct us on that?
Correct us on that.
Because we're really mangling these things, but that's okay.
And basically, you got Jackie Chan playing the key character of Lin Dong, the father, the police officer, the hero of the story, so to speak. Shou Lo plays this interesting young character called Lee Sun, which, is a great little sort of character, I felt, and also brings in this cultural comicness to it, right? Which we don't see probably in a Western sci-fi action film. They bring it in, and it's an interesting take, and I want to talk a bit about that as we go through. And Nancy is played by Nana Ouyang.
Yeah.
And then we've got a whole bunch of Australian actors, so it's a weird thing. Kim Jinjul, Damien Garvin, Tess Horbrich, as I mentioned before, and Callum Mulvey, all actors that have been in Home and Away at some point or another. I'm sure Kim's even been in an episode or two.
I don't doubt it.
I know he was a guest star on Neighbours at one point there. And it was filmed in Sydney and Beijing. Now, interesting enough, had a had a budget of 65 mil and it made 48 mil. So not quite making its money back, unfortunately, even though the Chinese press called this film a money grab film. So it wasn't any film of any substance, sorry. And that Jackie Chan just went after the money, I think was their quote.
Have they watched Jackie Chan films before?
But I went after that and I'm like, because they said, the plot wasn't really that decent and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, Well, they didn't actually make the money anyway, so it wasn't much of a money grab. So let's talk about the way we like to break down narrative really nice and quickly. We do look at people like Joseph Campbell, Blake Schneider, Rob McKee, Field, as always, that talk about this concept in film and in all story, really. But we have this key 3-act structure. That means that you take a 90-minute film and you're basically breaking the film into 3. What's Act 1, sorry?
Act 1 is the opening image. It's where we learn the main characters, where we get the theme.
The setup.
We get the setup. We get all these sorts of things which tell us what we're going to expect, what we're hoping to see, and we get some sort of an inflection point where their normal life with a normal world suddenly
an inciting moment,
shifts.
Right? Yeah.
And that's kind of the start of the film.
Yeah.
Of the story, I should say.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the start of the plot.
Yep.
So the story, because it's interesting, the difference between a story and a plot. A story is a sequence of events.
Yes.
A plot is the reason for those things.
Yeah.
So the story starts at Act 1. The plot starts towards the end of Act 1. Because up until then, it's just cop driving car, doing this. Okay, and then bang, we have this thing happen.
Yep.
And the story and the plot gets in gear and it starts moving, and we get into Act 2.
Yeah, and then Act 2, like, I like this description of fun and games, and really it's like the trailer that you might see of the film. It's the fun part of the film. Even if it's the most serious, dramatic film ever born, it is still the fun part of that drama setup.
The promise of the premise.
Promise of the premise. So what was that inciting moment? We're now kind of having a character make a decision that takes us into Act 2. And then in Act 2, hey, they're doing that decision. They're enacting out their consequences of what they decided, and that could be positive, could be negative, but either way, it is the playing out, and it gets us to basically the middle of the story, where there's going to be another junction where they kind of have to maybe make a big decision, or the decisions they've been making leads to this massive consequence. So kind of can be a bit of a win for the character, or it can be even more of a loss.
I like to think of it as a learning experience, because if you're looking at the journey of the characters, it's often the case that, the first act, it launches them into this new life, new world, new situation. Yep. And then we get the fun and games where they're carrying on basically the way they always have. Yeah. And they're trying the best they can. But in this
new world, right? Like in this new place.
They reach their midpoint is like, okay, that's as far as you're going to get with what you already know.
Yes.
Now shit's going to change.
Yep.
You're going to
have to change.
You're going to have to learn something.
Yep.
Or change or adapt.
Yeah. And the plot, which they might have thought was heading them down this particular highway, in fact, is not. So now they've got to kind of make another decision. And in doing that, there's some terminology, like if it's a film where bad guys are closing in, like this film, bad guys are literally closing in.
Yes.
So the kind of things that they've been doing, sort of winning it, so to speak, fighting on top of the opera house is winning before the midpoint. But then after that, the bad guys are closing in so much that they're taking people away, or they're killing people, or, the bomb that you thought the police officer didn't, stopped them detonating. In fact, there was another bomb on a different bus. And, that's the whole, he's got this spaceship it's taking the person into the sky. Yeah. How do we get into the sky? So there's always sort of like another accelerating of the bad guys. And this film did that pretty perfectly, that all of a sudden, Nancy takes off to back home to China. And then when they get back there, the bad guys are already there on top of her. They're kidnapping her. And just when, you thought, hey, he's got her license safe. No, it's the other way around. Now the bad guys actually have her. So it's kind of leading then into that point of do or die, and the main character has to kind of come up with a plan. And I guess this is the thing that takes us into that third act. I always describe this to my students that, you get to that third act, and again, the character has to be on a bit of a precipice, like on top of a mountain almost, going, well, I could just abseil back down and I'd be safe. Or do I kind of go over the ridge and keep what's on the other side of the ridge? Yeah. I've come all this way. I've learnt some new lessons, but I could just go back. I could just go back to my couch And if they decide not to, then they go over the precipice. And of course, as an audience, we're like, go over. We want to see it. And it could be life or death. You know, it could be on the side of a mountain and they've got no more rope. And they've got to now they've got to keep climbing and they've got no more rope to get them up the mountain to be safe. You know, and sometimes that's the thing. The stakes now are so high, it's life or death, or it's not only life or death. It's like if they go forward, there's no guarantee of coming back. You know, like in The Matrix.
They always have to make that choice.
We're going to go in The Matrix. We've talked about it. Going to go save Morpheus. I'm not the one. And we're probably going to die, but it's worth doing it to save Morpheus because he's more important than us. So let's go do it. So like that propels the story into a whole nother act of action.
Act 3, which is the finale. So Act 3 is where the hero or heroes has to pull together everything they've learned. So they up to the midpoint, they're just carrying on business as usual. Midpoint, they're usually a slap in the face to say, hey, wake up, you're having troubles. And that's proven all the way down to the end of Act 2 where they've struggled. Whatever. Act 3 is where they pull their shit together and they go, hey, you know what, I think I've figured something out.
Yep.
They gather their resources. Usually they're new resources they've gotten. You know, Neo asks for guns, lots of guns, and he's all fully trained up and he's, you know, gets going. And so they have the little plan and they get fired off and they head off and they get some initial victory, but then there's always like a reversal or something which sort of says, you haven't quite finished growing yet. You're not quite there.
Not quite there.
You're like, so you fall back a little bit. And then there's that, here's the true inspiration. Here's the real grit needed. Here's the heroic part. Or here's the lesson of the story, the theme being solved. The riddle of the first act is now being worked out. And there's victory. And it doesn't always have to be victory because sometimes we're talking about horror films in particular. It's almost a reverse situation where they have to have like something really horrible happen to them. But there's always a turning point there where, we killed Freddie Mercury. And then, because that's a horror film all of itself. No, we killed Freddie Krueger. I nearly said Mercury again, goodness me. But then, you know, the final scene where the car drives off and it's got his jumper pattern on it and the mum gets pulled through the door. But this is not that sort of movie.
No.
This is the one where the final thing happens and it's a final good victory. And then we get some sort of display to show the final image, which is some sort of
happily ever after, right?
We saw the opening. That's how everything started. How does it all end? How does it compare?
Yes.
And often they're very similar in the way they compare. You know, they'll show people alone and lonesome all by themselves, and then at the end they'll be sitting down in front of the couch, picking up the ready meal, and you're thinking, oh, they're all by themselves again. The camera pulls back. No, they're good buddies.
They're surrounded by people.
The dog that they finally befriended through the thing is next to him and puts his head on the lap. And he sighs happily. You know,
that's right.
So
they're bookends, but they're sort of opposite. Just sometimes they can even be almost the same scene, can't they? You know, like we're like word for word, action for action, but then they're opposites because of that lesson that the character has learned. Oh, how nice.
Nice one.
So let's get stuck into Bleeding Steel. So the opening of this film, we have Jackie Chan on his own, Li Dong, and he's like racing to... he's racing somewhere. I think then we're getting these like split shots, these split cuts, aren't we, to the hospital. And there's sort of like emergency work happening on this little girl.
Phone call.
And he's rushing and there's a phone call. He kind of gets stuck in traffic. And he then races through a car park to kind of, you know, obviously get away from the traffic. And he rocks up at the hospital.
Yeah, he's at the hospital. So here we've been introduced to this main character, fellow, and he's got some problems.
Yep.
So we've been told what his problems are through this really fast...
It's extremely fast opening.
A couple of minutes it comes in and he's like, so we already know that he's a police officer of some sort. Yep. There is an arms dealer who has someone hostage and then his daughter is at the same time dying of like leukemia and she's in a coma. And let's add on to this, right? Because we're not far enough in yet. He promised to be there for her birthday.
Yeah.
But at this exact same moment, the arms dealer is moving the scientist.
Yeah.
Or the scientist is escaping or something terrible is happening. And so we have this...
He's right out the front of the hospital.
It's all of his problems are all bundled into one.
Yeah.
And then he makes his choice, and this leads
a sad choice in a way, I reckon.
And Jackie has a little tear in his eye there. Yeah, so we get to... So that's the opening image, I think.
Yeah.
We've been introduced to the main character, his problems, and we can see what sort of person he is because he's really sad that he has to leave his daughter, but there's this other person's life at stake. And that would be a tough choice.
So it's so it explains who he is, isn't it? As a cop, he puts his protection of society over his personal problems.
Personal grief, really, because he's basically been told his daughter's on the way out, but this other guy's not dead yet. So
then we flash to this Dr. James, Kim Jin-joo, and he's like injecting himself. He's all sweaty. He seems to be in this like shitty place, apartment, whatever. And then the police start moving in, Jackie Chan and his clan, and they're kind of like rushing in, and he actually like sits back in his chair and vomits some foam out, good old foam.
Well, because he injects himself very graphically.
He does, yeah.
Which is often in movies they'll do a close up of the needle going into them, because there are plenty of movies where people inject themselves with something to help them, but it's kind of just a by the by. Yeah, it's almost off screen maybe, but this was one of those ones where the needle pierces the skin, very deliberately injecting this
a big needle,
green goop into him.
Yeah, and I did miss that. He's kind of got this big machine, glowing green syringes, blood.
Oh yeah,
like it's a very high. It looks like a high tech. It looks special.
Yeah, so we do get that this is something possibly bad. Yeah, because it's undeniably a reference to drug taking.
Yeah. The whole thing looks like he could be on drugs. Personal
harm he's doing, because you don't show that syringe going in like that. Like if someone had diabetes and I've seen these movies where they've got diabetes and they have to shoot themselves up. It's just, that's one of those ones that's sort of by the by, that they finally get the syringe and they sort of jab in their arm. There's not this big dramatic, here's it, needle pushes down on the skin and it goes boonk in, and then the slow injection of a large amount of something horrible.
But again, this is all the setup, what we we're talking about before, and it's all happening really fast in this film. Like it's cut, like it's real jump cuts. Because with that, this unit of police are, and we do have one wide shot of, these kind of suburban homes in China. But with that, we're in on Dr. James's place. There are a massive squadron of cops. They all got the cop things, and Jackie Chan's leading them with another woman,
like a 10-year-old girl.
They're very bunched up, and I'm like, wow, it's a bit over the top how many police. But I guess that was the whole idea there, was that this guy needs protection, or the bad guy's so bad he needs 20 police officers around him, and they escort him down this kind of typical kind of real little narrow alleyway through the homes, and there's a good jump scare of like just a father and a son standing on a balcony having a cigarette or something, and they come out into the open where all the cop cars are, and there's this Andre and these soldiers that just immediately start firing on him.
They just start shooting, and they very quickly demonstrate their immunity to bullets.
Yes.
And Andre, he's something special because he's painted funny. And I love the paint effect on him, that white,
across the face.
So his white skin, and then following the line of his mouth, it's black. And so the camera sort of almost doesn't pick it up a bit, and it looks like his top of his head is almost disembodied.
Yes, it does.
And you get this really jarring effect of someone that doesn't look right.
Yes.
And the whole time he's walking along, he's big and tall, and he's wearing like a big coat, and he looks very cyberpunky sort of fellow. But that makeup effect I thought was particularly effective in that it looked quite simple.
Yeah, and it's this great shootout between the cops and his soldiers. His soldiers are in these suits, kind of helmets, but they're glowing helmets. It's obviously a sophisticated material that they're wearing. Even Andre is interesting because he's wearing, apart from this black trench coat, you can sort of see a bit of his chest and stuff, yet they're firing on him, but it's not slowing him down. And they're just advancing on the cops, mowing them all down. There's bullets spraying everywhere. I think Andre pulls out a little, I don't know what you call it, little bomb gun thing, a bit Terminator style, just blows up
a bomb gun.
Yeah, bomb gun.
A Mark 5 bomb gun.
I don't know what you call those things because I don't really, not into weapons, but it's a good old, he blows up the squad car van, doesn't he? The SWAT van goes flying up and lands on another police car. And it's just kind of destruction unfolding. Jackie Chan's all a bit bewildered, but then he kicks in. He starts doing a bit of his like slip and slide and blowing people up in weird ways and kind of making a bit of headwind. I think he gets hurt by one of the explosions. They're trying to protect Dr. James, and there's but it's not looking good. The cops are just kind of like going down left, right, and centre.
It's not great. I mean, Jackie Chan, he does eventually sort of find these net guns and zaps them, and then that knocks these guys' armor down. And then, of course, you can just pummel them on the ground, like just overpower them with physical force.
Yeah, and I think one of the cops does just fire like really
this
close.
This whole scene, this all happens within the first 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to this massive shootout within 6 minutes.
Yeah.
By them, and so when I was watching it, I was wondering, going, "Is this can't be the inciting incident? This must be still set up.
Yeah,
this is still setting up characters or something.
Yes,
because it's far too soon for us to know."
So Andre gets to this Dr. James because he's mowed everyone down, including they've mowed everyone down. Basically, they've overpowered everyone, including Jackie Chan. He kind of got separated, and then he got hurt, and then with that. He's about to get on top to Dr. James, and Lee Dong, Jackie Chan, gets in a car and hits him and pins him against his oil tank. And we have this great moment of showing us that Andre's not really human because he picks up the car and the car, Jackie Chan's still flooring it and it's not going anywhere. But then with that, he's noticing that he's hit this oil tank and, obviously the petrol's pissing out everywhere and he just fires at the oil tank and it just explodes.
Classic
Bang.
Hollywood style.
Yeah. And then he's lying out there, hurt, bleeding, and his phone's starting to ring and he thinks of his daughter as it looks like he's dying, basically. Doesn't look in good shape. And as he's lying there, the phone is ringing and the Dr. James picks it up. And they're saying that, oh, no, your daughter has died in hospital.
Yeah.
And he kind of, is it now? To me, that's the catalyst. Sorry, that is the inciting incident. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I was thinking this is definitely introducing the debate.
Yeah,
which is because at that point it looks like he's just going, I'm done.
Yeah, it does.
And he gets this phone call. Xixi has died, or Xixi or Nancy.
Nancy, yeah,
has died.
Yeah,
and that's where he can go. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
I managed to save that guy, but my daughter's dead. I'm basically a wreck.
Yeah.
Does he give up? And I would say, so I sort of thinking this is where he's choosing to go into Act 2.
Yeah.
Where he's going, no, you know what? I'm gonna see this through.
Yeah, but it's a bit too early for Act 2, really.
It is. It was. As I said, this was so quick. This is all came and happened all around. Which is why I thought maybe Act 2, and this is where a lot of times these beats and acts and things aren't clear.
No, they're not exactly clear. And you could actually argue that, in fact, maybe that whole segment is not really the start of the story. The start of the story is now because after that, it goes 13 years later.
Yeah, 13 years later.
And now we're following this girl, Nancy, in Australia, going to uni. And, she's basically sort of got... Oh, no, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. But we've got this sort of now this intriguing... person of this author who's talking about a bleeding steel heart. Yeah. And he's Rick Rogers. Rick Rogers.
Rick Rogers.
It's also extremely Australian. Rick Rogers. So
it should be Duncan.
Duncan Rogers.
Duncan Rogers.
Another great Aussie actor, that guy. He's been in a whole bunch of stuff. You could, before we just get into what that is, what happens there, it's like you could say actually that's the start of the film. Like technically that's the start of the plot. Like that was a pre-fight that these guys all had But, these writers here decided to put that in at the start. It does make it a very high-octane start that kind of sucks you in.
It is more common in this sort of spy action thriller. The thing of the classic case of James Bond, it always starts in media res. There's probably about a 5-minute chase fight. Something exciting happens. And then it cuts it's the title credits. And then James Bond is arriving at HQ or a hotel or whatever it is where he gets his briefing or some sort of information. And so the whole start bit, you wouldn't even have to. You don't have to watch it. It's not part of the film.
No.
And likewise, this you kind of didn't really have to see that, except it introduced the characters a bit and stuff. But it's.
Essentially, the thing is with that opening, could you delete it and then still watch the rest of the story and it makes sense? And I think it would, because you could say that when Andre comes in, he's burnt, he's disfigured, he's searching for it. And it's like, you got me last time. You got me stuck up in this aeroplane for 13 years, until I get this daughter. I figured out the daughter's got the blood, like I'm coming for her. And it's like, so as an audience, if we hadn't seen that start, we'd be like, oh, they've had a fight in the past, right? Like, that's the pre-story. Like it's the history of these two characters. We don't necessarily need it, but they've included it. And I must admit, I kind of enjoyed it because I don't watch a lot of those actions.
Makes some good vision. It's the same reason you included it in James Bond.
Yeah.
Did you have to have a running parkour chase through a construction yard at the start of Hotel
because then there's going to be maybe about 30 minutes of talkie. So if you start with talkie, some people are going to walk out of the theatre.
Yeah, and likewise, if this started off with in Sydney with Lee, the young boy going along, and then following the he breaks into the as a prostitute.
Yeah.
As a side note, I saw on TikTok someone was demonstrating a full body latex suit, much like this, and it was quite convincing. They had to have the clothing adjusted just right because you get some weird creasing around the knees and elbows, but they had like a little shawl which sort of covered their elbows and some makeup on it, and it was really quite very convincing.
Yeah, right. Okay, the type of videos you're watching on TikTok, sorry.
Curiously synchronous with having watched this film where he has like this full body sort of latex.
So anyway, we have this author, Rick Rogers. He's got this bleedingsteel #1 book throughout the world or whatever. And so he's introduced to us as a way of kind of pulling us into the story that now it's 13 years later. We're in Sydney. And we have this young, we don't know it to begin with, this young girl, attractive. We don't see her face, all dolled up, very skimpy, looks like probably like a prostitute kind of outfit idea, arrives at this really flash hotel, heads up to this room of Rick Rogers. And so he's a bit sleazy and they're dancing and he's groping her and she slips him a little bit of, something into his drink. And so then he fades out and
I love that dancing where it's like Leeson's like twerking and Rick Rogers sort of blinks his eyes and opens and sees like sort of weird pimply man legs and then he sort of closes his eyes again and pass out and you go, okay, that's going
to be his lasting memory.
That was
although
twerking.
Then he dies, doesn't he? But anyway, and then this young girl does, as Sarah was just saying, it's like a bit of a latex, boobs ripped off, hair wigged, ripped off, and suddenly it's a young man, and he's the character of Leeson, and he runs to the computer, starts downloading information. He's looking for something. He's hunting for something. When all of a sudden this black-clad, as you said, Trinity version storms the room, doesn't she, with two of her guards? And Leeson, we don't see it. He just disappears in the room, and so then she's looking. They find a safe. They blow it up, and they pull out a book.
Bleedingsteel,
and it's not like a normal novel. It's obviously like the manuscript, right? Like it's the original or something. But then this guy jumps into the room. He's got a mask on, fights like Jackie Chan.
Yeah, surprisingly Jackie Chan like fighting style.
Yeah, so there's this, and this black-clad woman is actually a really good fighter too. So they fight, and within the fight, he's trying to get the book, so he gets the book, she gets the book, he gets the book.
The laptop
one of those
with the data on it.
One of those like flipping between the two. The other two, sort of masked soldiers, whatever, they get annihilated in the fight. Rick Rogers stands up and has his throat slit. And I think she grabs him, doesn't she? And she says, where was you copied the book? Where did you get it from? Does he reveal anything?
No, he just says, "Oh, it's all original."
All original. And but she doesn't go to kill him. But during the fight, they slice his throat open or whatever. And the masked man escapes upwards out of the building.
Yes, and Leeson, of course, jumped and ran and escaped as well.
As the police kind of come in. So they all escape the hotel.
Closing in, yeah. So this is kind of where, I put that whole Rick Rogers thing down as a bit of the fun and games. It's kind of because it was like, here's your wind up, and now we're going to have people running around doing stuff. Is that Batman? I put in my notes. Is that Batman?
Yeah. Well, it was funny, wasn't it? Because the woman in black as well, she jumps out of that building a couple of stories up, lands on top of a roof of a car, crushes it in, and there's like a couple making out inside the car and runs off, into the wilderness sort of thing, so to speak, doesn't she?
Yeah, and it's a good little bit. We, first of all, we get to see Nancy come in then.
This is then when
and she's
Nancy
coming
enters.
in like cafeteria.
Yeah.
A totally un-Australian cafeteria, but that's the way university cafeterias look in everyone's mind. No one would believe a real cafeteria. So, and
the Aussie cafeteria, mate. The Aussie cafeteria.
Yeah, and of course, Lisa,
shrimps on the barbie.
Shrimps
Kangaroo steaks.
Kangaroo steaks. Here's a can of VB, a tinny. Get a tinny up, yeah.
At uni, it's just. The food is. He was serving spaghetti. It's too fancy for uni food.
Fancy.
We have 2-minute noodles around this place.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So Nancy enters. To me, the B story, the way they said it is that Leeson is like attracted to Nancy. That's what they set it up as. So it's a nice play off that, even though it's not the actual context of it. But it's a nice one.
At this stage, I didn't know that Nancy was Nancy.
No, we didn't know that. It's just that he's a young girl, Chinese girl.
He's a young girl, and Leeson's gone, and is following after her.
Yeah.
And she gets into an altercation wherein Jackie Chan, who is serving at the cafeteria, sort of steps in and helps, but also Leeson also steps in and helps.
Yeah.
And then, she nicks off and runs for it. And we do get introduced to the Andre back up in his flying fortress, which is great. So this is more of that fun and game section here, where we're seeing a bit of spy games. They're trying to track down Leeson, so they're looking. They go, the costume was bought online, and so we get one of those things where Leeson's downloading information and finds a reference to Nancy's library card or something funny, and then the woman in black is moving in on the apartment, and you get the cut back and forth, so you get that. She's about to bust in on Leeson, and Leeson's quickly trying to do stuff. And you even looks in a TV monitor, and she's at the door.
Yeah. Knock, knock, knock.
Knock, knock, knock. Opens up. There's a pizza guy. And it's that the woman in black bursts into some fake room, which has the costume laid out on it and a little card
Smiley
that says...
face.
Yeah.
Hello or something.
Tricked ya, thank you, whatever. Yeah, so I think this is all that sort of fun and games, the spy story type of stuff. And you get that, Nancy scene where they're both trying to protect her, which is kind of, that brings that, okay, now that you've got the main characters have all met.
Yeah.
And you can see that they have noticed each other.
Yes.
Yeah, Jackie Chan's gone, who's this kid jumping in to save Nancy and so on.
And then that leads to she's visiting because she's having these vivid dreams, nightmares, that she visits this. It's really odd, but she visits this kind of witch doctor in downtown Sydney, and of course because it's in this downtown gritty graffiti-filled building, much graffiti that you didn't know where to look.
That's probably an art gallery.
It probably is an art gallery in Sydney, or some sort of open art display. But they made it. This is like a grittyville. There's some dodgy characters around. There's some dodgy young men. There's drug addicts.
And I want to ask a question because I probably might sound a bit naive. Is it really true these movies seem to portray whenever a woman is walking around, there's always some group of men hell bent on rape and murder.
Yeah, there is. There always is.
Is that? I can't believe that's really true.
I think you'd have to ask some women. Sorry.
I think it probably happens sometimes, but probably not whole teams. It's probably one or two dodgy guys on the wrong end of a bender. But these movies always seem to have there was 5 or 6 guys who were just kind of hanging around.
Yeah, look,
talking, and then they suddenly go, "Hey," they all look at each other and go, "Hey, let's go rape this woman."
I'm in some rape, and
I feel a bit rapey.
That's right. And they do. I shouldn't actually laugh because I think the thing is, it does actually happen. So I think there's some sort of truth to it. I think you'd have to
absolutely.
You'd have to ask some young women.
It's not the case, but the way movies portray it is always. I can't imagine ever working out in this fashion where there's just literally a bunch of guys just standing around talking.
Ready to rape.
And then I think it's more, there's probably more build up and, circumstance and it takes a bit of revving. The guys got to rev themselves up a bit first. Before they just launch in a full on attack mode.
Rapey attack mode. And they're in this type of story, because it's not as serious as maybe another film that delves a bit deeper into that, but into sexual assault and stuff. But in these type of films, the women quite often will defend themselves. They'll kick someone in the balls or whatever. And then the other men,
someone cops the
but then it's always then the other men are like, "Oh, that's it. We're going to kill her now."
It's like
you're kind of like, oh, so she stood up for herself, and then now you're really going to absolutely kill her.
Tell you the truth, I would expect the more reality if she went whacked that guy in the balls. I reckon the other guys would stand around laughing.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I think. Because there'd be a bit more of they were always like, "Get her."
Kill her.
And then and that's what happens.
They're doing parkour down the steps.
They do a whole thing, and she chases, end up on this rooftop. She runs upstairs. You're always like, "Oh, don't go up."
Yeah, where's that going to take you?
There's no women, don't run upwards upstairs. Here's a safety announcement for you, right? But anyway, so she goes up and she ends up on this rooftop. There's even more dodgy men that just want to join in again.
Yeah, I know. It's an old-fashioned gang rape, is it? Sweet.
I'm in, and there's barbecuing going on, and all sorts of stuff. And this is where culturally, and it's throughout this film. And I love watching these other versions of it. And it's a bit Jackie Chan, but I do wonder if it is a bit more cultural. But it's like now we've got this really tense scene going on where this woman's going to either get beaten to death or raped and beaten to death really horrifically. But then Leeson kind of enters the mix, and it's like a comedy. Kind of this comedy comes out there.
He sort of tries to do a bit of Jackie Chan.
He tries to do.
I think someone actually accused him. What do you think you are, Jackie Chan?
Yeah, and he burns his ass on the barbecue, and Defini gets his belt off, and his pants fall down. So suddenly it's like it's not this rapey scene, and it's a lot more gentle, and it's a lot funnier. And then he starts they go, oh, and they do attack him and pin him down, and she comes up and spray paints him. So it's kind of suddenly a bit comical.
Mind you, I saw that where she spray painted. I can only imagine that must cause permanent blindness.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine getting green spray paint directly on your eyeball.
Now, if you notice, you just said the other men laughing. You noticed that when they did that, there was a couple other people on that rooftop that then just laughed.
Yes.
Like they were like, spray paint. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's extremely Australian as well. It's like, yeah, she's got them good, Like they deserve it. They were rapies. they were in for some rapey rape. They would have raped me later today.
And now they're totally blind, which is kind of, bit of their upcomings, I suppose.
That's right. So anyway, she's we kind of jumped over it, but the witch doctor did say go to see Constantino, even though I don't think he's called that in this, but go see the magician at the opera house, and she takes off, leaving Leeson sort of left on the side of the road.
And this is where we find this is actually the source of the Bleeding Steel books.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the short dude would go up and did he have a name in the character? Or he was just like the small assistant?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd just go up into the control room and start recording the sessions.
Yeah.
And then they'd sell this onwards. It's not explicitly shown, but it's, you get that, you figure that out. It's pretty good, that nice little subtlety there.
I think so too.
And I love the idea. You go see Constantino or Constantine or whatever it is, and he's a stage magician.
Yeah.
At the opera house.
And he's
like Chris Angel or something.
He's the head hypnosis guy in Australia that you might have some time with him. Anyway, when she arrives there, Leeson's actually on the other side, and so he gets her into the opera house. And she does get on stage with Constantino. But with that, the woman in black attacks, murders Constantino.
Oh, yes. But he says it's his time.
It's his time, you know.
Yeah.
And but then Jackie Chan jumps in, starts doing his Jackie Chan stuff with the curtains and rods and all that sort of stuff.
A great running battle through the opera house.
Yeah, and Leeson helps, and I think that's when Jackie Chan's like, "Oh, I know he's trying to help," and he kind of removes her from the rooms, from the woman, and gets her out gets her safely out and gets her onto a boat. And then that's where we have this great scene that I talked about before, up on the opera house, my favourite scene of the film. We're up high, it's very dangerous. Jackie Chan has to kind of like slide down the opera house, of course, as you'd expect. And his big thing, isn't it? He always like slides off a building and lands on an umbrella or something.
Yes, umbrellas.
Like the umbrella always saves him, doesn't it? You know.
Well, he gets that from the Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah, yeah.
Where they always sort of fall as far as they want, and they just fall through one of those awnings, and they're okay.
And then they're okay. Yeah, that breaks the fall. But I felt the height. So if you're one of those people that's a bit scared of heights, or you do have that experience, watch this film for that. We do then cut that, they get away. He takes them back to their house.
Back to his house,
and his house is actually like this kind of fortress.
He's got the secret room
He's got a secret room where he ties Leeson or handcuffs him up, and Nancy goes to sleep. But then she escapes, right?
She wakes up and nicks off. As you'd expect, because she's kind of like, what the hell's going on here? And I figured this was sort of the midpoint here, where
I reckon too,
where things seem to have been going well. Like, they've Jackie and Leeson are finally together. They've got Nancy. They've got to the safe house.
Yeah,
and you think, like that was really tough, but they've done it. But up until this point, they've each only done what they normally do. Nancy has only ever kind of just befuddled her way along like a student. Leeson is just kind of,
she doesn't really realise the truth of.
No, and Leeson's done what he's done, and Jackie Chan's not even done what he's done. So they've just kind of gotten this far. So far, so good. But then Nancy, of course, runs away because she's not too keen on hanging around with a couple of weirdos. As far as she thinks, a couple of crazy people who are involved with bad people. Yep.
And she's still having her nightmares and all that kind of stuff. So she's no the better. So I agree. That was the midpoint to me.
And we also see here the gypsy is dead.
Yeah.
Yes, and which is where, of course, the bad guys are sort of getting a little bit closer. They're coming up to Jackie's house.
Yeah, so he knows that she's taken off, so he's lost her.
Yeah.
He knows the gypsy's dead and the scam.
Yeah.
Because he sees the cameras. And then with that, and he's learnt that Nancy's actually gone back to China. So she's totally fled.
Yeah.
And then the bad guys are coming up on his house. So he packs up, runs out the chimney.
Yes. His secret
door out of the chimney or whatever, and walks down the street and blows the house to smithereens.
With Leeson in the basement.
And takes off back to China. So he's kind of, you're right, like that whole thing before that is a midpoint, because now it's like, he's got to like go back home to follow Nancy.
He can't rely, because his old pattern was he was anonymous in the background, just keeping an eye on Nancy. And that led him all the way up to this point.
Yeah.
But it didn't save her.
And she's off on her own.
It's got to change. He's got to change it up.
Something's got to change. So when she, then back in China, she goes to Dr. James's house and discovers that Jackie Chan is her father. That's when she realizes, I am your father.
Your father.
She realizes all that, and she's got the key to the vault, which has got information. And with that, then of course the bad guys rock up. As we said, this moment in the film is there's more and more. The bad guys are winning. They're getting on top of the good guys, right? And so Jackie Chan's gone back home. He's got the help of his little assistant, sets him up. He heads to try to find Nancy, and with that, she's been kidnapped.
Got this car chase.
He's got car chase, and that's the thing. He can't win that car chase, and in fact, he doesn't. So Leeson pops in again and helps him.
Scooter, yes.
Yeah, with the scooter on the road. Again, it's a bit comical.
Comedy is like...
Yeah, it's like suddenly like pouring all this stuff on the road that then these people are going to die, but there's a bit of comedy involved. So again, it's like culturally there's something a bit different there. And
I think this is that sort of moment where we have that death of hope sort of thing, where they catch up with the cars. They find out they caught the wrong car.
Yeah. So the bad guys still have Nancy. So
they're taken to the vault.
They do. They go to the vault and they're like, the bad guys will go to the vault, don't they? So they set it up. They do a setup.
Yeah, I love this little sting because they get her down there and then into this vault and they open up the vault to get out the heart or whatever it is. And then gas flows in. But
it's not a heart either. It's a camera.
Oh, no, sorry. Yes, it's a camera they get.
Yeah, and it's a trick. And then they do the gas. Yeah.
Then they gas them and they go, we know their weakness of their armor, of course, is not gas-proof.
Yes.
Yeah, it's bulletproof, but...
Not gas-proof.
But not gas-proof.
And then they look at the camera themselves.
Yes.
And the footage is the scientist doing his thing, right?
His research, yeah.
Yeah, and shows that he's... what does it show in that video? That
it shows the starfish and the gecko.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's showing that. Yeah, that's right.
It shows that he injected himself with the blood. Yeah. So it's kind of my understanding. This was just sort of one part of the 2-part key. So this, in conjunction with her blood, with the memories in it, would restore the research basically. Yeah.
So I think they kind of figure out that Andre, the bad guy, would need her blood, and that's why he wants Nancy.
Yes.
And Nancy will be alive and well. They won't kill Nancy, and so because he needs her blood, so she's safe. Even though she's with the bad guy, she's safe. And then they could give them the camera as a bit of a swap as a possible thing. And of course, Leeson kind of is scoping out the camera. And you can see that, and it's kind of a little bit suspicious what he's up to. But anyway, there's a good cut there because Jackie Chan's assistant goes, so they'll be expecting them to come back to the airship.
Yes.
And so we just cut from that. And again, this film's done this a few times, that we're kind of like jumping the story, not telling the audience exactly what's about to happen. And then so we see like the woman march in with her 2 little soldiers, and they march up the ranks to this death ship.
And a couple of soldiers give a slightly odd glance.
But we're just seeing everything shot from behind. So she's walking, and she gets to a point, and then there is a guy, a scientist, goes, "Hey, you're not," and then they like knock him out or whatever they do, and she turns, and it's the assistant is dressed as the woman in black.
Yeah,
and so that was a nice little touch, I thought.
And I reckon this is the Act 3 plan.
Yes, it is. This is their plan. They're attacking the ship.
Here's our plan. We've learned something because they got clever. They stopped the previous strategies, and then they went for this spy game sting to capture them and get in on the action.
They did. So yeah, it takes us into the finale because that's the thing. They've got this plan. They've got their resources. Let's jump on the ship as the bad guys, see how deep we can get to save Nancy.
And nowadays when I watch films like this in particular, I always see that they go, okay, because they initially start winning, they shoot around a bunch of guys, they
get rid of their henchmen,
hold some scientists hostage and so forth, and it's like, in my mind I think, okay, so something's going to fail.
Yeah.
It has to, because...
And what do they get? Doing.
Yes, they get this wall, they can't get into Nancy.
Yeah.
And then of course the guy can't open it either.
No.
So it's just done. And then soldiers just keep flooding in.
Yeah.
And I love the way Leeson keeps lying on the floor pretending to be one of the soldiers.
Yeah, that's a cool plan.
It works perfectly every time. Cause
little Trojan horse almost.
I think like, how are you supposed to know? There's a whole bunch of these guys lying around.
All shot dead. And Andre, meanwhile, with Nancy, is transfusing the blood. So he's taking it out of her.
It's got a great machine with a percentage amount. And you see the green and the red colours and the blood being split into 3. Because
and he also clearly said to her, because she warned him, she goes, "You're going to have 3 people in your brain." And he's like, "No, I've got a filter."
Yeah, got a memory filter somehow.
A diffuser in the middle.
Don't ask me how.
I like that.
I'm in a flying fortress and you're asking about how I filter blood.
I'm going to filter blood for this, right? So, yeah, there's a typical big battle scene. They can't get the soldiers are just coming in, but and there's a lot of Jackie Chan, great action, fighting, shooting. They all do their thing. But then with that, Andre smashes out and attacks them all.
Yes.
And he's feeling good again because you could see his skin's coming back to him. And so there's a great fight. It's a pretty cool fight scene, I thought, between one big bad motherfucker and then these three
people, 3-on-1.
3-on-1. And one's Jackie Chan, so you'd expect he to have a bit of a, go at her. And
Jackie Chan loses his arm in the process, which...
Well, Andre falls into this big melting heat pot thing, and the thing shuts down.
Again, it doesn't really explain what that is
either. But his arm gets ripped off, and in the process, and so then they're going out and they're taking Nancy, and they get to and meanwhile the ship is starting to collapse from all the fighting and gun battle, and so they get to this kind of side, and they're like parachute, and he's like, get her out of here, and. I think he kicks Nancy out, doesn't he? Yeah, he does. Kicks them out so that they're already out there. They've lost Leeson as well, back at the original battle bit when it sort of exploded, and then with that, Andre comes out and attacks Jackie, and they're fighting. And he's losing the battle, and he remembers that. Well, hang on, he injected me with a bit of his blood.
Well, yeah, and he's got the hose thingo that he got stabbed with, and he's like, oh, okay. And sure enough, his arm regrows.
That's right. So he's sort of been enduring the fighting. He's got some of Andre's blood, and his arm just regrows, and so he can overtake him and battle him and kick him back into the ship just as it explodes. And of course, he jumps out without a parachute. Typical Jackie Chan. And he's flying down to Earth, and the other two are parachuting. They're like, oh, just lean it this way a little bit.
Open a secondary parachute. I'm curious to know that the Mythbusters are going to do this one or something. Like, they not do anything anymore, I guess. But is this even? Would he have fallen so hard and fast that he would just rip through the parachute?
Through that parachute,
or would he have bounced off it and softened his blow enough to fall into water?
Yeah, I don't know.
And bingo, we've got this water scene again.
Yeah, back to the water.
Ever since this discovery where you were talking about water as this crossing over point. Now you see it here. Jackie Chan limp as a frog. Are they limp?
Yeah.
Okay.
A bit limp.
A limp frog falls into the water, splash. He goes,
and he's sinking.
He sinks down unmoving, dead. But then, of course, he comes away and he kicks up, and he bursts out of the water again. We get this bursting out of the water scene. He's the only person in the frame.
Yeah.
You see nothing else. It's just him, his arms back.
Yep.
And, of course, then the other people come out. And again, it's just this whole rebirth. It's like that's the end of that story. It's now starting over.
Yeah.
Because Nancy's remembering her memories.
Yeah.
So remembering that's her dad.
That's her dad.
And remembering that Leeson actually went to school, orphanage with her.
That's right.
So it's sort of this restart process.
And it quickly cuts to, and they're happy in Sydney. So it's a good example of that bookends, right? Like what we said before, that versus Jackie Chan on his own, rush into a hospital, dying child, and then now at the end, we're back in Sydney. It's like it's a fairyland. It's a amusement park. They're all having a good time, taking photos. They're a happy family almost, right?
Yeah.
So it is an opposite to the beginning. He's got his daughter. He's got a family scenario. But then with that being this style of sort of thriller, sci-fi, action, Jackie Chan stuff, they're realizing that, well, Leeson was actually a bit of a double agent, I suppose.
Yeah, he was the son of the arms dealer.
Yeah, and so he was in the orphanage the whole time. He wanted revenge. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And what kind of revenge will he had? And it cuts to, as I said earlier, that there's this arms dealer with boobs all around him, and Leeson is talking to him about the tape and negotiating how much the tape is worth. And that's the end.
Yes.
Dun dun. Bleeding Steel.
Bleeding Steel.
Go check it out.
And with all of this water, I've realised that I'm going to have a water scene in my screenplay.
Well, if you want rebirth,
there's got to be a turning point. Well,
or transition over to another life.
There is a couple, because I love that theme in stories. There'll definitely be there.
Well, it's so visual in film as well, isn't it? If you chuck people into pools of water or oceans or rivers or lakes or even really heavy rain, right?
They come bursting out of the water and sprays and splashes everywhere.
It's very visual for film.
It's great.
So what about the ladder, Surrey? Where are you putting this? For me, it's coming in, when we've done a lot of films now, actually. For me, it's coming in, funny enough, under another Chinese film, which was Shanghai Fortress. I've got Shanghai Fortress on my regular ladder at number 40. Bleeding Steel's coming in now at number 41. And then after that is the I.O. So I think it kind of would be a nice little match in there, because those three, if you were to take those three films, they're actually drastically different. You kind of got one that's set in an apocalyptic future where they're trying to fight the world, save the world out of China. You have this one, which is much more down to earth. Yeah, it's futuristic in one type of science, but then very realistic in another. Yeah. And then lead into I.O., which is kind of that slow burn, end of the world sort of story. So I think that would be a nice little, if you sat yourself up on a Friday night to watch 3 films in a row, that would do quite well.
I had it moved up to number 39, which is, it's below Darkest Dawn, which is the Lee
British
Casson.
Yeah.
Was that his name?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Casson.
Drew Casson.
Drew, that's it, Drew Casson. Oh, I'm sorry, Drew. And in Paradox, the Iranian, and I like that because it's the Darkest Dawn is this alien invasion. It's, as you said, I went for the apocalyptic thing. I think that matches well with this.
Yeah.
But then this is a very human story about a family. Mm-hmm. And in Paradox, then we go back to that sort of bleak, but it's still got the family element to it.
I think the way that we've both put it between, even though they're different films, it's almost like the style of the beat of the story. You know what I mean? Like, you've got one that's an end of the world sort of story, and then you've got this one, which is a high octane, big action, and then one that's just going to be a bit of a slow burner,
bit of a,
because in Paradox is a bit like that, isn't
and
it?
I.O. is very sort of personally intense.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
In Paradox is that personal intense sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay.
There we go.
It's quite an interesting way of doing it. And if anyone else is playing along here and has their own playlist order,
definitely.
Get in touch with us and let us know, and we'll see how we're going.
Yeah, compare playlists, ladders. I like that. So what about Surrey? Nice and quickly, what do you think about the science in this film? What are you going to pick on? Are you going to give me a bleeding steel heart one day?
Oh, look, I did actually do a bit of research into artificial hearts and synthetic blood substitutes. And there's a really interesting story about the original efforts in the 1600s for replacing blood. And every time the concept of replacing blood comes up, it's in context of war.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a big war, there's always this massive need for blood.
Of course.
They tried all sorts of things. In the 1600s, they tried beer.
Yep.
Because, why not?
Why not?
And
I'll take it.
Well, at the very least, you're not going to be too, knowing that you're dying. Anyway, urine.
Ooh.
Because
beer's much better.
I'm not sure why they chose urine.
It's fluid, human fluid, I suppose.
And milk. Milk apparently not as bad as you'd think it was.
Okay.
It's not as good as you think. But anyway, I didn't do that
I'm
at all.
dairy intolerant.
Instead, I had a look at this bit of MIT research. Ooh. So we've got this guy, Professor Stephen Barrett from MIT. He had this very interesting idea. See, back when he was a kid, he'd be watching these movies and television series like Star Trek. And he remembers looking at the shuttles and loving the way these shuttles would just sort of come down through the atmosphere and land really, quietly, no big fanfare, no blasting rockets and so forth, which was in stark contrast. Because remember, Star Trek, the original was in the 60s. Which means it's right during the space race, the rocket program, the Apollo program, where everyone, Buck Rogers and all of those science fiction people were getting into space by rockets. Yeah. And here's Star Trek, and they're coming through in these quiet, gliding, sort of moving things. And so he said he was fascinated by that anyway. So he's looking more and more into that just on his own. And he's come across this idea of an ionic wind drive.
Right.
So flight with no moving parts. So the idea of this is, and it's quite simple in concept, as many of these things are, but if you have one wire, which, for example, is a negative charge, right? That means it's giving off electrons. And then you've got another wire that's positive, so it's going to accept electrons. So you're going to get this flow of electrons from one to the other, which means they're going to be hitting, creating charged particles. Like the air is going to get charged.
Yep.
And it's going to move towards the positive pole.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to bang into other air along the way, creating wind.
Yeah.
So if you had enough of these wires with a strong enough current in them, you could get a strong enough breeze over a wing to get lift.
Yeah, right.
And it would be really very quiet because it'd just be, a puff of air. You don't have any fan blades or any rockets or jets or anything. So he's gone and tried to figure out whether it's even workable. And most people, common conventional thought is no. The amount of power you need, the amount of lift you're going to get, how it works, it's impractical. And he said, well, stuff that. Star Trek can do it. Why can't I?
Yeah, let's do it.
He did a bit of he says here, back of the envelope equations. And then he said, it could work. And so he did. He made this beautiful model. It took him, about 9 years or so of doing bits and pieces. Finally managed to find a custom-built lithium battery which would fit into the fuselage of the glider. Yeah. And then get the right weight and density and thickness of these wires and so forth. And he and his buddies went into the gym at MIT with the gymnasium. So it's an indoor space without wind and, birds and whatever. 60 meters long. And there's a couple of videos. If you go check out on the MIT.edu site, it's the first ionic wind plane, no moving parts. And there's a lovely little video there where they indeed show it's like a Wright Brothers-esque looking sort of glider flying across the length of the gym under its own propulsion, silently.
How cool.
And I really love this idea because I remember reading, what book was it? I cannot possibly remember what book it was. At one stage I was reading a great deal of science fiction books. So one of them, anyway. But they had these ionic shuttles. So the shuttle would enter the atmosphere, just basically fall, because that's the easiest way of getting into the atmosphere. But when it hit atmosphere, it had this highly ionized hull because they had, miniature fusion engines, so they could produce a lot of power. And it would just basically use this ion field around the shuttle to blast air in whatever direction they could change the ionization of the hull to produce different air gusts, and they could fly these ships without moving parts down. Yeah.
Sounds cool.
And it's really good. And in that book, they could also get enough charge flying up that they could reach escape velocity. So they basically shoot upwards as fast as they could towards the atmosphere, and they'd run out of atmosphere, so their ion charge wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But they would have been going fast enough that they go boop out into orbit, and then they just sort of have a couple of maneuvering jets to sort of land themselves back on the jet.
Yep.
And the reason I thought of this, of course, was because of that flying fortress.
The Death Star in the sky.
Yeah, that flying fortress idea, it had no wings.
No.
It had some great big monster jets at the back.
It did.
For forward propulsion.
Yeah.
But, something like that, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool?
Yes,
and then I had
awesome.
I had a little remember this ion flight sort of thing, and I went, did anyone make that really real work?
Yep.
And the answer is yes. 3 years ago, Professor Stephen Barrett from MIT, he did.
Be interesting if he's done anything updated since then, I suppose.
Because
that's the thing. A lot of this science, like you said, it took him 9 years to get to there. So it's like, well, now it's another 3. It'd be interesting if they have made it lighter, flyer, whatever.
His idea was that not so much that you can be able to scale this up to passenger jet things.
Yeah, of course.
But he's saying for drones.
Yeah.
If you're doing scientific surveys of places, like drones are really noisy. They sound like a swarm of bees.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you could, and obviously if you're trying to film wildlife or any other thing, and you've got this angry swarm of bees buzzing around, you can't get good shots.
No.
Everything runs away from it.
That's right.
But if you have these nice sort of quiet gliders, could glide around the place.
Yeah.
And they would have a very low impact. They're not shooting exhaust out into the atmosphere. They're not, lots of noise or light or anything like that.
Yep.
And they'd be able to do surveys and no doubt though, there's an arms dealer thinking, what he would also do is silently deliver deadly payloads.
Rockets.
And then, of course, this guy would get kidnapped by someone and be forced to create anyway,
a version of it. Yes, of course. Oh, that's excellent. That'd be really cool. And does explain the strange spaceship in this movie.
Yes, and I think so. And it's to see this thing flying, and you can't hear it properly in the video, but it looks science fiction. It has no moving parts. It's just this wing, but it's propelling itself. Like it's moving faster than a glider could move on its own. So
yeah, cool.
That's science. That's like solar panels are science fiction. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Well, go check out the videos, folks. You heard it here.
Fantastic. MIT.edu. Just do a search for the ionic wind aeroplane.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of Bleeding Steel, episode 67 for us tonight. If you're playing along at home, our next episode, you can go out, check it out. It's on Netflix at the moment. It's a British sci-fi, and it's called Await Further Instructions. Came out in 2018. I really don't know much about it. Just kind of randomly picked it. Hopefully it's a little brilliant one. If you're out there, wherever you're listening to us, give us a 5-star rating or write a review on wherever you are listening to us, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Anchor FM, or I don't know, wherever you get your podcasts for Space Brains. Why not give us a little tick, thumbs up, stars.
Send us a little note to tell us maybe you've got a suggestion, or maybe you think we've completely butchered some symbology or didn't pay much enough attention to something really important in one of the films.
Definitely. Let us know. You can find us at spacebrains.com, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Just look for Space Brains.
And sometimes the newspaper.
Sometimes the traditional press is following us. Also, if you're making a sci-fi short film or feature film, think about entering the Space Brains Film Festival. Find that at Film Freeway or again on our website. Hit us up, let us know, interact with us at any point.
And await further instructions.
I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.